So I want to begin by honoring your being here. I am making the assumption that most of you see the little worship blurb, that's what I call it, either in Friday's Arbella or on our Facebook page, describing in a few sentences what the upcoming service will more or less focus itself on. The blurb about today said that we are going to consider Jesus Christ, the man, the myth, the symbol, the metaphor, as a source of meaning and mooring this season. So let me say it again. I honor your being here. And for those of you ready to gather your things and bolt for the doors because you missed the memo, thank you for staying. But this month's theme is wonder. And right now you are living, breathing embodiments of it because you showed up and you show up. This is something I'm learning about this congregation. You show up even when it's tough. For despite your previous faith traditions, your religious upbringings, spiritual hurts and harms, your justified moral and ethical concerns and rejections of Christianity, maybe even your general distaste for no real reason for the words Jesus Christ, here you sit. Here you sit. And not all of you feel this way. Let us not make assumptions here. Many of us are more conflicted than we are resolved. Many of us are nourished by this language and symbolism and belief. Some of you identify as Christian and are starving for more of this. And isn't this what makes Unitarian Universalism so special and beautiful? This wide spectrum of spiritual need and longing and faith and doubt. I first called myself a Unitarian Universalism when I really got this. I didn't know about our faith's history. I couldn't name the principles. I didn't even have the affirmation of faith or even one hymn memorized. I'd never gone to a general assembly or even knew what it was, but I called myself a Unitarian Universalist when I got this message, when I understood what we were trying to do here. This was when my first minister at the First Religious Society, UU Church in Newburyport, Reverend Harold Babcock, who's now very much retired, said from the pulpit, "We Unitarian Universalists understand the religious life as a way and not a stopping place. We understand the religious life as a journey or quest. We understand that people join us at different places along that journey or quest. We understand religious community to be possible without theological or philosophical uniformity. And that is why we say, these are his words, come as you are. You don't need to get your beliefs straight first before you come. Come as you are. Come with your doubts, your hunches, your convictions, your ambiguities." I was hooked. That was my first sermon that I heard at that church and my first UU worship service. It was in 2011. And I have that sermon printed up and pinned to my bulletin board above my home office desk to this day. I left that service knowing that I'd been UU for most of my life and didn't even know it. Maybe some of you have that story too. So now let me pivot back on over to Jesus. Jesus Christ, the Christ. Here's my disclaimer. I have used his name in vain far more than I have in prayer, reverence, or study. And that says a lot considering I chose to go to a Christian seminary. Jesus was not a fixture in my childhood home at all. My parents had no interest in organized religion or church life, having been reared up Roman Catholic, Italian Roman Catholic, right, and Christian Science, with strict, devout parents. Those were my grandparents. They did what many of their peers did back in the 60s, look to alternate ways of meaning making outside of the church. So Buddhist and Hindu teachings, Carl Jung, the transcendentalist, myth, philosophy, poetry, theater, art. This was the spiritual life I was raised up with. See, I told you I was you before I even knew what that meant. I guess so were my parents. But Jesus was never invited to the party in my home. Neither was God, that word God. No. So many of you know that my recovery from years of drug and alcohol addiction, that's now over 20 years ago, I just celebrated 22 years at the end of November, forced me into some good wrestling work with the word God. But I never had to contend with Jesus. In fact, those in recovery who found their way to Jesus and Christianity, I kind of like quietly bid farewell to, like, oh, what a shame, we lost another one. Truthfully, there just was nothing cool about Jesus in my 20-something-year-old world and mind at the time, and that carried over for a lot of years. So when I was called to ministry and I began looking at seminaries to attend, I pointedly chose a Christian one because I longed to discover in Jesus and Christianity something that might speak to my heart so that I could better understand why this faith and story and man had captured the hearts of millions and millions of people around the world and broken them too. So I arrived to Boston University School of Theology wanting to know who this guy was and what was so darn compelling about him. And the truth is, and I learned this well during this time of deep study in seminary, we know only a little about him. The historical Jesus, as we call him. We do not have solid evidence of the time of his birth, only conjecture around it being sometime before 4 BCE. December 25th got planted in our collective minds hundreds of years later for a myriad of, quite honestly, offensive and questionable political reasons. Okay? And the date of his death can also only be approximated. According to most historians, he probably died in the first few years of Pontius Pilate's administration, somewhere around 26 to 29 BCE. So historical Jesus is really an enigma. We only have the Gospels to help us get a sense of who he was and why he was so captivating. But these accounts are from decades, even centuries later. None were written down by Jesus or even his disciples, those who knew him, despite being told as if from their vantage point. This is what some good historical evidence tells us. And of course, when these accounts were written down by ancient peoples whose ways are completely foreign to us, we need to know that they spoke in symbols birthed out of the oral tradition of storytelling, mythology. Reading the Bible really should be akin to reading poetry or literature, myth. text that teaches us about what it means to be a human being through the use of metaphor and symbolism. The great Joseph Campbell, who really is an authority on mythology, I think he has it right. He says, every mythology has to do with the wisdom of life as it related to a specific culture at a specific time. He calls myth the literature of the spirit, the song of the universe. He says that it helps, this is important, it helps put your mind in touch with this experience of being alive. That's what myth does. Stories, myth, metaphor, symbols, religion, Christianity, he says, these are all treasure troves of wondrous clues, hints, guesses that help us to find meaning and hopefully some kind of, rapture around this thing called being alive. So Campbell says that to see religion or its sacred texts as something that can be interpreted literally, not metaphorically, it doesn't make any sense. And secondly, it puts us into a lot of trouble. Oh, we know about this trouble, don't we? A literal interpretation of the Bible. The great mistake in biblical interpretation, my friends, has been in its reading the words in terms of prose instead of in terms of poetry. Prose is the seen, the known, the concrete. In literary terms, it's the denotation. It is what it is. Poetry gets to the unseen reality. It's the connotation. It's something different than what it first appears to be. So, how to get to this now? Here. How to move through these next few weeks, and I hope beyond these next few weeks, allowing for a bit of wonder in this poetry. Maybe even some meaning making. Clue searching. Dare I ask for the possibility of transcendence or transformation? How to encounter Jesus, whose name is now going to be bandied about through hymns and story readings and prayers in the coming weeks. How to come at this differently, without just gritting our teeth and crossing the days off to January. And ultimately, I say to you that it's up to you. Because you are your own translators, miracle workers, starfish finders. You. Only you can, as Joseph Campbell says, look for places of meaning that put your mind in touch with your experience of being alive. The season of Christmas, the story of Jesus, is just one of many of these wonderful, introspective, contemplative, invitational, rich in symbolism and metaphor and meaning places. For you. At this exact moment in time in your life. So why not give it a whirl? The religious life, as Reverend Harold said, is your journey. It's your quest, and let me tell you this, and this is a promise, you're among friends and companions here at First Parish while you are on this journey. We are journeying together, me included. But I will share with you this morning what speaks to my heart and soul when I consider Jesus. the man, the myth, the metaphor, and this time of year. It's ever-changing, but here's what it is today on December 11th. I am being intentional about offering you a big platter of food here. Each of these could take and should take years to unpack, but I hope for now, this morning, you might consider them to be like sweet little taster bites, amuse-bouches, as they say in the culinary world. See what might leave you longing to come back for more of, for a larger portion. So here they are. First, for me, the symbolic beauty that is the birth of a baby, something new and precious amid strife and terror and violence and oppression, the hope of life amid metaphoric death, lined up precisely when night unveils its long stretch and the light ebbs and then flows. It speaks to my own lived story, and maybe yours too. That miracle and wonder and hope and healing, the possibility of a new life, can indeed meet us on the dirt floor, mangers, and basements of our souls. I needed that message like I needed air before I got sober. So that's one thing for me. Next, the fact that this mythic, ambiguous Jesus Christ loved the wretches of society, the outcasts, the throwaways. These were the people he hung out with. These are the people he called prophets in our midst, those for whom life wasn't easy. And the fact that he did this, it teaches me about loving the stranger, big-heartedness. And this has taught me that even at my worst, my own wretchedness, I too deserve kindness and care and love, that this is my birthright and it's yours too. And because of this, when I hear the words, Jesus Christ, child of the divine or God in word or in Christmas hymn, I'm reminded I'm that child too, as I am today, imperfect and utterly whole and holy. This is what our poet's words helped us know today that Missy read. The time will come when with elation you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Okay, I'm almost done. Last. There are more, but we'll just do 3. Last, on my what speaks to my heart and soul list this time of year. When I encounter the words Jesus Christ and the Christmas story, I know it as a blessed reminder, and Lord knows I need it, of ambiguity and paradox, of humility, for I can't ever really know what the heck went on in that manger or what these people found meaningful in its somewhat strange and choppy telling. I used to be so intolerant of ambiguity, I had to have answers and explanations. I still can be this way. And this is the season for faith in the mysterious and unexpected. And maybe that's all we do over the next few weeks, just change out the word Jesus for wonder and ambiguity. And I don't know. That's good nourishment for the soul. And at the end of the day, I do know one thing for sure with total certainty. We really are all just hinting and guessing at this stuff. The work is in not becoming resigned or fixed, and I've preached about this before. My prayer for us all is to move through these next few weeks with just a smidge more open to the wonder of it all. Let's not let others' interpretations or our faith stories or our parents' faith stories seal this thing up. Pick up some rocks that you might have walked by hundreds of times and look on the other side. You might just see the mystery of the universe waving at you underneath it. And I tell you, if this isn't apt symbolism for the season, for Jesus, I just don't know what is. So stay in it. Keep showing up. Teach one another. Teach me, for I am still here ready and willing and wanting to learn and wonder with you. I tell you that the stakes are high. They are high. But the reward is great. That's a promise. And so I say to you, amen, during this season of Advent and wonder.